At 82 years old, I've made a lot of mistakes. Some were small, like forgetting where I put my glasses for the 100th time. Some were bigger, like holding on to anger longer than I should have, or letting the wrong things matter too much. But the mistakes that stayed with me the most? They weren't loud, they weren't dramatic. They were the ones I didn't even notice I was making, until years had passed, and I looked back and thought, how did I let that part of my life slip away? You see, when we're young, we think old age will bring wisdom, calm, maybe even peace. And in some ways it does. But what no one tells you is that aging also brings choices, quiet ones, habits, routines, small decisions that seem harmless in the moment. But over time, they shape the way we live, the way we feel, and the way we fade or flourish. I've watched people I love grow old with light in their eyes and purpose in their step. And I've watched others slowly give up on joy, on movement, on themselves. Not because they wanted to, not because of any single event, but because of little mistakes they didn't know they were making. And that's why I'm here with you today. Not to judge, not to scold, but to share, to tell the truth about 5 huge mistakes that many people make in old age. Mistakes that quietly destroy their health, drain their happiness, and take more from their life than any illness ever could. But here's the good news. Once you see these mistakes, you can fix them. You can change direction. You can bring joy back into your mornings, energy back into your step, and meaning back into your days. We're going to walk through these together, one truth at a time. I'll tell you stories, some from my own life, some from people I've loved and lost. And I'll offer simple, doable steps you can take starting today. So if you've ever woken up and thought, there has to be more to this season of life than just getting through it, you're right. There is, and we're going to find it together. If you're still with me, go ahead and comment number 1. Just a little way to let me know you're here, listening, and maybe even feeling some of the same things I've felt too. Let's begin. Let's begin with one of the most common mistakes I've seen and made in old age, and that's settling into isolation and calling it peace. Now don't get me wrong, after a long, noisy life, raising kids, working jobs, surviving relationships, keeping up with bills and chaos, it makes sense to crave quiet, to finally have mornings where no one needs you, to enjoy silence, space, and stillness. That part's not the problem. The problem is when silence stops feeling peaceful and starts becoming empty, when the quiet you used to enjoy turns into a kind of slow erosion of spirit, of motivation, of joy. I had a friend named Roger. Roger was one of those solid, dependable types. He worked for nearly 40 years at the post office, always on time, always polite. He retired at 66 and said he was ready for freedom. And at first it was great. He spent a few months watching old westerns, sleeping in, sipping coffee on his back porch. But as the months turned into years, something shifted. He stopped returning calls. He didn't go to the monthly breakfast our group had kept up since our working days. When I'd stop by, he'd be polite but distant. He said he liked being alone, said it was peaceful, said he didn't need all that socializing anymore. But over time, I saw it. The spark faded from his eyes. He moved slower. He talked less. He stopped shaving every day. His once tidy yard grew wild. And not long after his 72nd birthday, Roger passed away quietly in his home. There was no major illness, no accident, but the doctors noted signs of depression, malnutrition, and advanced frailty. Roger hadn't just been at peace. He had been slowly fading away, in silence. You see, isolation is dangerous. Studies have shown that social isolation in older adults is associated with higher risks of everything from heart disease to stroke to early death. It weakens your immune system, raises stress levels, and leads to depression even in people who've never experienced it before. Our bodies might slow down, but our hearts and minds still need connection. We still need someone to talk to laugh with, to share a cup of tea, a memory, a prayer, a walk. So what's the solution? Start small. If you haven't talked to someone in a while, pick up the phone, call a friend, Even if it's been years, just say, "Hey, I was thinking about you." Join a group, a book club, a gardening circle, a walking group. Go to church or the senior center or even the local library. And if going out is hard, try writing letters. Send postcards to old friends or your grandchildren. Connection doesn't have to be loud or crowded. It just has to be real. Because the truth is, we're not meant to fade alone. We're meant to belong, even now, even still. Have you ever chosen silence when your heart really needed connection? Comment number 2, because admitting that is the first step to changing it. Now let's move on to the next mistake, one that shows up not in how we connect with others, but in how we treat our own body every single day. Now let's talk about a mistake that sneaks in quietly, often disguised as taking it easy. It's the belief that movement is no longer necessary once we reach a certain age. I've heard it 100 times. I'm retired. I've earned the right to rest. My knees aren't what they used to be. I'm too old for exercise. And listen, I get it. At this stage in life, rest is important. Our bodies do change. We move slower. We need more recovery time. But rest is not the same thing as stopping. And stopping completely can be dangerous. Let me tell you about 2 old friends of mine, Tom and Jerry. Yes, those were their real names. They were born the same year, served in the same branch of the military, and even retired the same summer. Tom was the kind of guy who always had a routine. After retiring, he started each day with a slow walk around his neighborhood, 20 minutes, rain or shine. He did some light stretching in the afternoons, and once a week, he joined a chair yoga class at the community center. Jerry, on the other hand, believed retirement meant no more movement unless it was absolutely necessary. He'd say, "I've been running around my whole life. Now I'm staying put." He spent most days in his recliner, remote in hand, getting up only for meals or the bathroom. At first, it didn't seem to matter. But by the time they were both 75, the difference was clear. Tom was still sharp, steady on his feet, full of stories and laughter. He walked without a cane. He played with his grandkids in the backyard. Jerry, though, had started to shrink, physically and emotionally. He shuffled when he walked. He needed help getting out of chairs. He no longer drove. Eventually, a simple fall in the kitchen led to a broken hip. And from there, his independence faded quickly. The truth is, the human body is built to move. Movement keeps the heart strong, the joints flexible, the muscles engaged. It helps with digestion, sleep, mood, and even memory. When we stop moving, our bodies take that as a signal that we no longer need strength, coordination, or endurance. And slowly, we lose them. But here's the good news. It doesn't take hours in the gym to stay strong and steady. You don't need to run marathons or lift heavy weights. Start with a 15 to 20-minute walk each day, even if it's just around your house or down the driveway and back. If walking isn't safe, try chair exercises. Lift light objects. Stretch your arms and legs. Stand up and sit down from a chair without using your hands. All of it counts. All of it adds up. The goal isn't perfection, it's consistency. Your body doesn't need intense effort. It just needs movement. So the next time you think, "I'll just stay seated today," ask yourself, what small thing can I do? What muscle can I wake up, even just for a few minutes? Because every step, every stretch is a message to your body that says, "I'm still here. I still need you. Let's keep going." Do you move every day, even a little? If you do, you're already winning. And if you've stopped, that's okay too, because today is a perfect day to begin again. Comment number 3 if you're ready to take that first step. And now, let's turn to a different kind of movement. Not the physical kind, but the emotional one. Because one of the biggest mistakes we make in aging is letting regret take up all the space where gratitude should live. Now let's talk about a mistake that doesn't show up in blood work, but you can feel it in your bones, in your chest, in the long pauses between conversations. It's letting regret replace gratitude. This one can sneak in quietly. It doesn't arrive with warning signs or a loud voice. No, it whispers, in the form of "if only." If only I had taken better care of myself. If only I hadn't said that. If only I'd made different choices. saved more money, traveled more, worked less, loved better. And before we know it, those little thoughts start to take over. They creep into our mornings, sit beside us at lunch, and echo through the silence at night. We start living more in what we missed than what we still have. I knew a man once named Harold. He was brilliant, an engineer, a teacher, a mentor to many. In his younger days, he was the kind of person people went to for advice, for help, for answers. But in his later years, something changed. Every conversation somehow turned into a story about what used to be. He'd say things like, "I used to be sharp, now my memory's gone. I used to run marathons, now I can barely get to the mailbox. I had big dreams, but life got in the way." And the truth is, Harold still had a lot going for him. He had kids who loved him, a roof over his head, books he hadn't read, music he still loved, but he couldn't see any of it because he was always looking backward. Over time, that mindset wore him down. He stopped engaging with people. He isolated himself. And even his health started to suffer because the mind and the body are more connected than we sometimes realize. Here's what I've come to learn. Regret is like quicksand. The more time you spend in it, the harder it is to move forward. And the worst part? It blinds you to the beauty that's still right in front of you. But there is a way out. It doesn't erase the past. It doesn't rewrite what happened. But it does gently shift the way you see things. And that's through gratitude. I know that sounds simple, maybe even cliche, but hear me out. Start with writing down 3 things you're grateful for every day. It could be as small as the sound of rain on the window, the warmth of your morning tea, a phone call from a friend, the fact that you woke up. Then, try sharing that gratitude. Tell someone what you appreciate about them. Say thank you, write a note, or simply speak out loud what you're thankful for as you go about your day. The more you focus on what you still have, the less power the regrets will hold. Also, take time to reflect on what you did right. We often forget that we've made good choices too. Think about the things you're proud of, the people you've loved, the challenges you've overcome. Let yourself feel those victories again. They're part of your story too. And finally, slow down. We miss so much when we're rushing through life, even in retirement. Sit with your coffee, watch the birds, feel the sunlight. It's in those slow moments that gratitude has room to breathe. Have you ever caught yourself stuck in the past? Spending more time with your regrets than with your joys? Comment number 4 if that sounds familiar. And know this, you're not alone, but you don't have to stay there. Now, let's turn our attention inward in a different way. Because one of the biggest mistakes people make as they age isn't physical or even about the past. It's forgetting to tend to the emotional part of who they are. Let's talk about it. Let's talk now about a mistake that's easy to overlook, because from the outside, everything looks just fine. It's when we take care of our body, but completely ignore our heart. Mistake number 4, ignoring mental and emotional maintenance. I knew a man named Charles, lived just a few houses down from me. Every morning at 6 a.m. sharp, he was out walking. He ate clean, took his vitamins, never missed a checkup. He was the model of physical health. Strong handshake, upright posture, always neatly dressed. But over time, something in him started to shift. He stopped smiling. His greetings got shorter. The warmth in his voice faded into a kind of flatness. And when I asked how he was doing, he always gave the same answer. "I'm fine." But he wasn't. You see, Charles had lost his wife 3 years earlier. And though his body kept moving forward, his heart had stayed back there, with her. He never talked about her, never cried in front of anyone. He said he didn't believe in dwelling on things. But the truth was he was dwelling in silence. And that silence grew heavier with each passing month. Eventually, Charles became withdrawn. He stopped joining our Sunday breakfasts. He didn't come to neighborhood meetings. And one day, after weeks of not seeing him, someone went to check and found him in his home, alive but deeply unwell, malnourished, dehydrated, depressed. His body was strong, but his spirit had been starving. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. Because we are not just muscles, bones, and blood pressure. We are stories. We are feelings. We are joy and grief and hope and memory. And when we stop tending to those things, something inside of us begins to dim. Even if we're doing everything right on paper, mental and emotional health is just as important as physical health. More even. Because when your heart isn't well, your body follows. Depression in older adults is often missed because it doesn't always look like sadness. Sometimes it shows up as fatigue, as irritability, as forgetting things, as staying in bed too long, or losing interest in things you once loved. And the good news is, it doesn't have to stay that way. There are ways to nourish your heart, ways to tend to your emotional self with the same care you give your body. Start with talking to a friend, to a family member, to a counselor, to a support group. Say what you're feeling, even if it's messy, even if it's hard. Speaking it out loud lightens the load. You can also write. Keep a journal, not just for your memories, but for your moods, your thoughts, your worries. Sometimes your own words on a page will reveal things you didn't even realize you were carrying. Try quiet moments, 5 minutes a day to sit and breathe. Close your eyes. Let your shoulders drop. Feel the ground beneath you. That's meditation. And it doesn't need to be fancy. It just needs to be honest. You can even nourish your spirit through music, through prayer, through walking in nature, through art. Whatever reminds you that you are more than what's hurting, that you're still here and still capable of healing. Have you ever taken care of your body, but forgotten to care for your heart? Comment number 5 if that sounds familiar. You're not weak for feeling. You're not broken for struggling. You're human, and there's help. There's hope. There's healing. Now in our next part, we'll look at one more mistake, one that robs us of curiosity, excitement, and the will to keep growing. Let's talk about what happens when routine becomes a trap instead of a comfort. Now, let's talk about mistake number 5. One of the most sneaky and one of the most soul-draining. It's what happens when we let routine kill curiosity. Now don't get me wrong, routine has its place. There's something comforting about waking up, making your coffee, reading the paper, feeding the cat. Routines help us feel stable. They give structure to our days, especially after retirement when time feels a little softer. But here's the danger. When every day becomes exactly the same, when we do the same thing in the same chair at the same hour, something inside us begins to shut down. Not because we're sick, not because we're old, but because we've stopped feeding the part of us that wants to learn, to explore, to be surprised. I think of my friend Marvin. For years, Marvin had been a lively guy, sharp-witted, always curious. But after his wife passed, he slowly retreated into a loop. Wake up, watch TV, eat a sandwich, nap, watch more TV, sleep. Every day, the same. When I visited him, he'd smile politely, but the sparkle was gone. No new stories, no new thoughts, just reruns, on his screen and in his spirit. And I don't blame him. It's easy to fall into routine, especially when life feels quieter. But the truth is, our brains, just like our bodies, need exercise. And not just crosswords or Sudoku. They need novelty. They need new sounds, new skills, new ideas. Because curiosity is what keeps the mind young. And more than that, it's what keeps the heart alive. You see, when we stop being curious, we stop feeling things. We lose the little spark of excitement that says, I've never done this before. And without that spark, days start blending together until we look up and wonder where the last month or year went. But it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to fly to Paris or start painting portraits. You just have to say yes to something new. Take a class at the local library. Join a choir even if you think you can't sing. Learn how to play chess. Try a new recipe. Write a short poem, even if no one sees it but you. Visit a nearby town you've never explored. Ask your grandchild to teach you how to use that app they're always on. The goal isn't to be good at it. The goal is simply to try, to remind yourself, I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I'm still alive. And if it feels scary, good. That's the feeling of being on the edge of something new. That's the feeling your brain craves. That's the feeling your spirit has been waiting for. When was the last time you tried something for the first time? Comment number 6 if it's time to change that. You're never too old to be curious. In fact, the older we get, the more precious that curiosity becomes. Now take a deep breath with me. We've talked through 5 quiet but powerful mistakes that can slowly chip away at our happiness and health. But we've also talked about the small, meaningful ways to reclaim it all. Up next, let's bring it all together. Because this journey doesn't end here. It begins now with choice, intention, and the quiet courage to live fully again. So, we've arrived at the end of this conversation, or maybe the beginning of a new one. Because the truth is, growing older doesn't have to mean growing smaller, quieter, or less alive. But for many of us, it does, slowly, silently, because of the very mistakes we've talked about today. We stop reaching out and call it peace. We stop moving and call it rest. We carry regret and forget how to be grateful. We care for our bodies but not our hearts. And we let routine dull the edge of curiosity that once made every day feel like a new adventure. But here's the thing, my friend. Every single one of those mistakes is reversible. You can choose connection, even now. Call someone, write a letter, join something. You can choose movement, even a little. Walk to the mailbox, stretch your arms, dance in the kitchen. You can choose gratitude. Look at what you still have. Say thank you out loud. You can care for your mind, not just your body. Talk to someone, journal, breathe. And you can try something new today. It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be yours. Your age is not a finish line. It's a doorway, a new season. And while we can't go back and change what came before, we can decide what comes next. You still have chapters left to write. You still have time. And most of all, you still matter. Your life, your joy, your strength, your voice. So let me ask you, which of these 5 mistakes hit home for you? Which one are you ready to shift, starting today? Leave a comment and let me know, not just for me, but for someone else who might read your words and think, maybe I can try too. Thank you for spending this time with me, for listening, for reflecting, for choosing, even in this small way, to show up for yourself. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, stay kind to yourself. You're doing better than you think. Take care.